Welcome to the Virtual CPA Success Show for creative agencies, the go-to resource for agency owners looking to scale their business. Join us every week to stay ahead of the curve and position your agency for future success.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. I'm really excited for today's episode and today's guest because we are going to talk sales again. It's been a couple months, I feel like, we've talked sales. So we're bringing an awesome salesperson in here, Diane Helbig. She's with Helbig Enterprises, and she really understands sales and has a better way for using sales within your company. So Diane, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your experience?
Thanks. I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. So I am a business advisor to small business owners, helping them get over challenges, oftentimes with sales. I train people in all sorts of businesses around soft skills, customer service, leadership, that sort of thing. I'm the author of a couple of books, two of them about sales, podcast host, speaker, the whole 9 yards. I'm doing it.
Awesome. So you, similar to you, we have another author and podcast host on here as well. So of course, we're joined by Jody Grundon once again. So welcome to the episode, Jody.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jamie. My favorite topic. So sales, my favorite topic. So I'm excited to dig in on this one for sure. Outside of you, Jamie, you're my favorite topic outside of the podcast. So.
That's just the pre-show and the after show, and we talk about all the fun stuff. So, but sales is definitely fun as well. So I guess let's just start at the beginning. Let's start at first piece of advice that you give a client, or what's the direction that you're trying to get your customers when you're talking about sales with them?
Well, the first thing I say to them is stop selling, because sales doesn't work. So, yeah, can we just...
How does that go over?
They say to me, wait, what? How can you... And I say, I'm talking about sales in the traditional sense of the word, because for so many reasons. One, people are engaging in behaviors that don't work. Two, most small business owners, and I find even salespeople, don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable. They don't like the feeling of it. They feel like they have to engage in ways of behaving that aren't natural. So they either don't do it at all or they do it really poorly. So why this is where I end up scratching my head and saying, okay, if it's not working, you don't like it, why are we doing it this way? Right? So it's a mindset shift. Move away from this whole persuading, convincing, cajoling, being salesy and slick and all of the nonsense. And let's incorporate a whole different way of doing it that feels better, is more natural, comfortable, and people will do.
I love that comment, because when I before accounting, as a lot of people know, I used to sell knives. So I was a knife salesperson.
Wait, was it Cutco?
Yeah, Cutco. Yeah, 3 years of it too. I sold it for 3 years. I actually ran an office, teach people how to sell it, and that what I would consider is the traditional way of selling back then. And I think that's what you're talking about. People, that doesn't work anymore. That's not the way to sell. When we started Summit, I was like, I'm going to do just the opposite. I'm going to go exactly what I think works well with clients and what people want to hear, and give them choices, help them make decisions, versus try to sell or have all these different closing. There's like 100 closes. If you listen to Zig Ziglar, he's got like 100 different closes you can make on clients, and really, do they work? Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't use them anymore. But right. I'd love to hear your take on that, because I have the exact same feeling, exact same position.
Yeah, my brother used to sell Cutco knives too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
They're super nice.
They're great knives. They are great knives, right?
Super nice.
So here's the problem. Back in the day, before the internet, you could sell like that. I think people still didn't really like it, but consumers didn't have a choice, because they had no way of gathering the information that you had other than for you to walk in their door or call them up on the phone, right? Now we have the internet. Everybody knows everything, or they have easy access to information. So they're doing their research. And what I tell people is, you can't sell anything to anybody. People will buy from you when they need what you have to sell and they like and trust you. Period. it's timing. There's so many parts to it. So if we stop doing this weird, if I could get it for you in yellow today, would you buy it? Today, could we sign a deal? If we can get away from all of that, what we're really doing is helping people problem solve, because we're really understanding what their problem is. And if our product or service can help them, we've listened to them, then we're just we're walking down the same road together, right? Objections go away. It makes sense. It's easy. That's it.
Yeah. And I could say from my point of view, from someone that isn't very salesy, so when I first started at Summit, one of my first things, because I was working at an airline prior to coming to Summit, so I had free flights. So Jody was going to take advantage of that. So he took me to a couple of events. He's like, "Oh, Jamie, you should come to Seattle and come to this event." And I was thinking, "Oh boy,
Why not?
I've only
It
been here.
doesn't cost anything.
It doesn't cost him anything, right? I've only been here for 2 months, and I'm going to be trying to sell our product." And Jody took the pressure off me from day one. He's like, "You're not selling the product. All you're doing is creating connections and really just talking to people." And it just made me, as someone that was never really comfortable with sales, and made me completely comfortable on day one. And I had a great time, and I've been to probably 20 events since then, because they always talk about in companies, you want everybody selling, but at the same time, you don't want everybody selling, right? Like your thing is that you're just building those relationships, developing those relationships, and really understanding the product, so that when they need the product, they know where to go. And that was the whole model. The first couple times I went to these events with Jody is like, I don't need you to do one close. I don't need you to even talk about a sale. All I want you to do is make sure that everybody in that room understands what we offer. And that's a lot easier for me to do versus trying to sell people.
It's easier for everybody to do, right? Yeah. This is why I say, it's so much more natural, besides the fact that there's people you don't want to work with, but you don't know that if all you're doing is going after the sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
You find out about that later, after you've married them and they're your client, and you hate them and they hate you, and now we have to get divorced, right? So if we can back that up and not do it that way, and just engage, have conversations, learn, the whole process is better, and we have better, longer lasting clients than we did before we used this method.
Yeah, and I tell people a lot, because we go to a lot of different events, and the events like Jamie is mentioning is, and I learned from the very beginning, is that the idea is not to sell, the idea is to educate. So education is the key there. And so it's not educating on necessarily what you're selling. And what I mean by that is, we don't talk about virtual CFO services and what we do on those. We don't on a sales. We don't talk about any of that. We talk about what's important to the client. So like if we're going to a creative agency event, we're going to be talking about profit margins, what the industry is showing on increases in revenue, what, where are people leaking profit, what kind of cash position do you need to have, so we're talking about things that is really important to them, because really our service isn't important to them. It's the result of our service, right? And so we're trying to teach those folks how to actually do it. And the biggest high five you could ever get is if you educate somebody enough where they don't need you. That's pretty cool. And that's probably one of the biggest compliments that we've ever gotten from clients, is that, and they're not clients, they're just friends, right? It's pretty common that if I go to New York City, I guarantee I could get a meal anytime I wanted for free, because all the people because I get that all the time. Hey, when you're in New York City, when you're in Boston, hit me up. I owe you big, and it's like, well, that's a huge compliment. I'll never make a dime on that person. I don't really care. And the thing is because I know that the more we educate people, I know that there's going to be 75% of those folks are going to try it. And then they're going to realize, hey, that's just not their cup of tea. That's not their superpower, and then that's when those folks will reach out to us and we'll help them. The worst thing we could do is sell our service to the first person I mentioned, the person that can do it themselves and then is doing really well with it, because that would probably be your worst client ever.
Absolutely. But you know what? They're going to refer you. I would imagine you get referrals for them too.
All the time.
Because they know people who either can't do it themselves or don't want to do it themselves. Yep. Right?
That's exactly right.
You're a trusted resource. They know, they've got it. They've figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's huge.
And that's really what thought leadership's about, right? You're creating
Mm-hmm.
thought leadership. People go to
Yeah.
you for that resource, knowing that, hey,
Yes.
you're the bundle of knowledge that they need to tap into every once in a while, whether they hire you or they just reach out to you with a question.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really true. I do think that before you educate, you have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Definitely.
think, salespeople don't learn enough about what's going on with a prospect in order to really, A, know whether they can really help them, and B, what that would look like, and how to have that conversation in a way that ties the two together. So
Mm-hmm.
that is a big part that I think is missing.
So question I want to ask on this is, so a lot of times when I talk with agencies and I talk with clients, we talk about hiring that salesperson or that business development person. And the question comes up, do I hire someone who's really good and understands our product and teach them to sell? Or do I hire a really good salesperson and then teach them about our product? So I'm curious what your thoughts on that are.
I'm going to say it depends on your definition of really good at sales. So, because if someone's really good at sales in the old fashioned sense, I don't think you want to hire them, because I think they're going to damage your reputation as an organization, right? You're going to spend a lot of money. You're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy. And the people who you're dealing with are not going to be happy. So I would rather that you take someone who really understands your value proposition, the result of what you do. They don't even have to understand how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
They just really have to understand what problem you solve. They can understand a little bit about the how. They don't even have to be in the weeds, but they're really good people, right? That they're curious. They're curious minded.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving. And they're genuinely curious. So they're not just asking the questions so that they can tick off the list and then pitch. They really are curious, and they understand this can take time. This takes research. It takes all sorts of things, but it's that personability thing that is what people buy.
And I'm curious to you on this question, Jody. So like, I know we recently hired or brought in someone that's doing our sales, and I think that's the number one thing she's really good at, is she's been asking all the leaders, asking people is, okay, what do we bring to the organizations? What are we looking for? I mean, Jody, would you agree that's kind of what, I know for a while it was hard for you to hire a salesperson, and I think this is probably why. Is this kind of what made you sign off on Christy?
Yeah, because of all the different hats that I've worn in the company, from leading, the production side to, marketing to you name it. The hat that was the hardest for me was the sales side, because the sales side is really the key to everything else working. You got to have clients coming in the door. So clients got to come in the door, and they've got to come in with the right expectation, and that's really important to set. Otherwise, everything else will be, you're setting everybody else up for failure. Otherwise, if you're saying our onboarding is going to take 2 weeks and it takes 2 months, and we're high-fiving because we did a good job, but the client's expectations are different, that's setting us up for a disappointed client, no matter what the true experience should have been, to begin with. And so I think that's the part of the sales process that was super hard for me to understand and know, because I did talk to a lot of people. And do we hire a salesperson? Do we just hire within and promote one of our CFOs to a salesperson? What do we do? And it wasn't until I ran across the person that we have in that position right now, Christy. She's doing a great job, and she has a lot of background in sales, but not just in sales, but in management, management of other companies, and in some bigger companies, and her big superpower really is her follow through. Her ability to understand everything and just follow through, which was probably, if I'm going to call it my own weaknesses, probably one of my weaknesses was the follow through part. And the fact that she's constantly asking questions, trying to learn what we do. She wants to be at the events that we're talking at, knowing that she's not going to speak, but just kind of hearing what we have to say. And I think that's the important thing that she brings to the table, is that she knows that she doesn't know everything, but she's willing to learn and willing to understand. And if I were to ask her today in one of her quarterly reviews, hey, what would you ideally like to be? I guarantee she'd say, I want to be a thought leader like you. I want to be able to get up there and talk. And that's what, that's what really kind of sold me on the fact that, hey, I think we got the right person for that. Now, time will tell, obviously, as that person matures through the organization. But so far, she's doing a really good job, and I think I can see that on the onboarding side when clients come aboard. I think their expectations are in line to where they need to be.
That's really great. It's rare, but it sounds like she comes to that naturally, which is great, right?
Very natural, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to find.
I think it is tough to teach people curiosity, in my opinion, right? Like I think you either you meet people that are curious or you don't. And I think the other way to teach, the only one way I've ever found to teach curiosity is to put someone in a situation of something they really love doing, right? When it's something you love doing, the people are naturally going to ask questions. Where it's like if you threw someone that isn't naturally curious into like a car mechanic's office and like they've never driven, they don't care about cars, it's not their thing, they're not going to ask questions. Where a natural curious person is just going to be like, wonder how that works, or I wonder how that's working.
Right.
But I think that's the only way really to, in my opinion, to teach someone to be curious is to put them in an area they're passionate about.
I think you're probably right about that. One of the things that I say is our mantra has to be, I don't know. Because what we do is we go into the situation believing that we know how our solution is going to help them. And we could be right, but that limits what we learn. So if we go into every situation with, I don't know, then I don't think it really necessarily matters where we go. We're always seeking to understand. We're always seeking information because we know there's the good possibility we don't know a lot of things that we need to understand.
I think you're right on that. And I know you're right on that. So thinking, saying that was probably the wrong terminology, but when we go into different verticals, I truly think, because we're focused mainly on the creative agency vertical, and we're dabbling and going into other verticals. I wouldn't say dabbling; we're really going into them strong. Cannabis, transportation, legal, healthcare, and a few others. And the thing is I know nothing about any of those verticals, so nothing. I don't know anything about cannabis, nothing about trucking. I've had one trucking company. I had one healthcare company that I worked with for over a period of years. But I think the biggest thing is that, we can be successful in those verticals if we hire people that have the knowledge to be successful in those. And then we tap into that knowledge, because I know that if I can hop on a call with John Scott, who's doing our legal, I know that he and I could easily deliver the right product, the right service to a prospect that's looking for that, and we can educate them on what we do, how we do it, and what's right in that vertical. John has the vernacular that I don't have, and that's probably the biggest, I think, the difference between the verticals, that he knows the language. I'm not gonna, and I've been on calls where people don't know that vernacular, and it makes them look really bad.
Yeah. Okay. So that I totally get. I would agree with that completely. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. So I guess you've talked a lot about what you teach and what you believe. So I guess my next question, this will probably be the last question we have time for, but I'm curious, when you are working with a company, like how do you get them to take that next step, and how do you get them to kind of change going from that traditional sales model into this sales model? Because I imagine that's a pretty challenging job for you. So I'm just curious, like how you get people to actually buy into this.
So it's very challenging for me, and I have to take them back. We go to, let's take a look at your past clients and the top 20% and the bottom 20%, and let's dissect them. Let's figure out what industry are they in, what size are they, what work are you doing for them, how did you get them originally? Because I believe in repeating what works. So let's find out on the top, and then we have to know how we're getting that bottom 20% because we hate them. So we got to know, what do they look like? How they, so we don't do that again, right? And then we just start with just steps of, okay, now that we have a target audience, start doing your research. And here's the research that you're doing. It's the curiosity thing. Let's whittle them down. What do you need to know about them before you ever do outreach? Now let's do outreach. How are you going to have that conversation? We create a list of questions that they need to ask in the sales appointment. It's really about the granular. So they don't necessarily have to think about it. They just have to do it.
The question I get, and Diane, I'd love to hear your 100% take on this, and you may have kind of talked around it a little bit, is that we get our, because with our engagements, they're always long term. Our average client will stay with us for 4, 5, 6+ years, and so it's a long term engagement. It's not a quick in and out, fix an issue then leave. And so when we match up our CFOs with the prospect or the client, we want to make sure that they're a good fit. We want to make sure that they're a good fit for the client, but also a good fit for what we have to offer. And we get that right probably 80%, 90% of the time, but we do get it wrong 5 or 10%. And the CFO always comes back to us and says, "What, Jamie? What do they say? What do they say to us?"
It's not a good fit. It's not a good fit.
Yeah, we need clients that are better fit.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you? I mean, can you figure that out in a sales call? Is that possible, or are you going to bat 80% of the time success rate? And what's your take on that? Because I'd love to have that formula, because again, it makes it a bad, it puts a bad experience in for our CFOs, especially if they're going to have a client for a couple of years and it's just not really a good fit for them.
Okay, so my first question would be, what about it isn't a good fit? Because what that tells you is, here's the questions you need to ask, you need to add. So we don't ask enough meaningful questions about the prospect. We ask about the situation, and we're really good at that. And we dig in there, but we don't ask enough about them and who they are and how they motor, how they make decisions, how they problem solve, all of these things. So we can really get a sense of who are they and whether we feel like it's a fit, whether we feel like there's a match there. So, I think there's probably questions that you could be adding to that discovery conversation that would give you a better idea of whether it makes sense.
I think it's 100% right, Jody. And I'm curious if you agree with me on this, because I think when people say they're not a right fit, it's not really the product, it's not really the process, it's always the person. It's the person that we're interacting with. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, because they definitely, they always have the issues that we can handle, we can take care of, we've done over and over and over again. Not an issue there. And it's hard to tell, because everybody, I would say everybody, everybody on a sales call is in their best position. They're in their best thing.
Right.
I think, wow, this guy I could be a friend with. This lady is perfect. I'd love to meet her, know her better, or whatever, because we just hung out with each other and I had a great experience. And then I find out that she's the worst person in the world, or he's horrible, treats people bad. How do you figure that out without in that sales call?
Well, you ask questions like, have you ever used a service like ours before? Tell me about the experience. You can ask questions like, would you mind sharing with me a time when you had you were dissatisfied with a vendor, and how you dealt with that? Like, what was it about them? What were they doing or not doing? Whatever, because you're really trying to get into that for them to, spill the tea, I guess is, how these days the vernacular, right? So it's asking those more probing sorts of questions, so you can get a better idea of who are they really. You're not going to bat 1,000. You're not. It's not going to be 100%, right? But you could probably increase your
so kind of turning it more into an interview, like you're interviewing an employee is what it sounds like. Not only the services that they're looking for, but themselves. Trying to get it out of them to kind of sell themselves a little bit.
Right.
How many times have you ever been on a sales call? I know it's happened to me. I know it happens to Adam all the time, our other owner, but like have a client just be like, just so you know, I'm a pain in the butt. Like I'm the kind of person that's going to ask a lot of questions and be very detailed. Like I love when a client gives me that upfrontness and is like, I'm this type of client. Like I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. I'm going to be really making you be at your best. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a client we won't sign. Right. In fact, that's the kind of client that I'm like, oh, perfect. I know the kind of CFO I need to get in front of you, because some CFOs work really well with that type of person and others don't. So I think it's getting people to I
Yeah.
love what you're saying right here, because again, I knew it, but I don't really think about it on my sales calls as kind of asking about the person that they're going to be working with. What is your working style? How would you handle this situation? If you ever worked with a CFO before, what was your problems with that CFO, or what went well with that CFO? I think those type of questions really would help us identify the right person for them, or be like, oh, we don't have that person that can deal with that person in house.
Which is fine, right? Which is fine. Then you say, thank you so much for the information. I don't think we're the right resource for you. Because you can't match them. You can't try and make that happen, right?
Which is best for them, best for us, best for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely a large takeaway for me, because I know, again, I'm not on a ton of sales calls, but I think it's something that I definitely need to think about a little bit when I am on those calls. And so I want to get to our fun question here. And so this is going to be a hard one, I think. Diane, before the show, said I want you to challenge me. So I'm definitely challenging you on this one. So we talked a lot about curiosity early on, and I think it's a skill I think all three of us probably have. So I'm curious about a time curiosity has helped you learn a skill that you knew nothing about. And so what's a skill that you've mastered based on your curiosity? So I'll give you guys a second to think about it. And I'm going to start with you, Diane, since you said you wanted to be challenged here. So I'll give you a second to think, and then I'll throw it over to you. So what do you got?
Well, my gosh, which one do I pick? It's because we're having this conversation. I'm going to say, oh, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to say, shooting a gun.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, buying a gun, learning how to use it, shooting it. Yeah. And something I never, ever thought I would ever do. And during COVID, I just said, you know what? I'm doing this. And so I had to learn a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Because it's not easy. That's something.
It's not easy at all.
It's not easy. But I'm really good.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
Oh, yeah. I have great aim. Yeah. That's the only thing I learned. Yeah.
So, Jody, remember that. She has great aim with a gun. So
yes.
Hopefully this podcast was going well. Yeah, I think the other part of that too is there's a lot of safety there too. Like I think it's something you have to you have to learn how to do properly. You're gonna hurt yourself.
Yeah, my mother bought a gun. It's kind of funny. She bought a gun and hasn't even taken it out of the box yet. She bought it in COVID.
Oh, really?
But, because she listened to all the news and how people were kind of breaking out. All the different stuff that very rarely happened. And so she was prepared, and she had this gun that supposedly she was going to figure out how to use it if somebody ever came into the house.
You sort of
never left the box,
right? Yeah. I know I bought two. I mean, then I was all about it, because once I'm
then you knew it.
What you're in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, Jody, my dad's
a marksman, so he's definitely in the guns big time. He's got many guns. Mine is not a skill that I've actually, or it's not something I've actually conquered yet. But what it is, it's something that I'm going to be. So it's a future thing. And when I was in high school, I wrestled and loved it, and it was one of those things that it was just fun for me. And since high school, I've not done it. So I've not done this in 40 years, right? And so I thought, hey, it would be kind of neat to take up something like that. And so I've been looking at jujitsu and talked to a lot of people that have been doing it. I'm watching all kinds of videos and really kind of just of people actually doing it and teaching how to do it and that sort of thing. And so I'll be taking my first class in January. And so that is something that. Like you said, being curious about it, getting some, I want to get, it's not just because I want to get out there and have self-defense or anything like that. It's more getting back into shape. And I thought, you know what? I tried the weightlifting. I tried the dieting. I tried all of that. Why don't I try something that I enjoyed, when I was in really good shape? And that was back then. And so I thought, hey, Jamie's for you, it's basketball. For me, I don't, it's not like you can join you could probably join a wrestling club and wrestle, a bunch of people on Saturdays. I guess you could. I don't know of it, but I thought, hey, let's try something that I think I would really enjoy. And knowing that, and it was kind of funny because I was listening to one video and it said, be prepared to lose a lot. And I thought, you know what? I can accept that. I can take losing a lot. I did it a lot in high school when before I actually became pretty decent. And I know that I'm just going to, these kids are just going to beat the heck out of me. And I know that and I accepted that. But it's one of those things that, it's like, now it'll be fun. Now it's going to be something I can participate and do well and have fun with it. Knowing that I'm not, well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll become a black belt in it. Who knows? I mean, that'd be a great goal. That takes a lot of dedication, and I'm not sure that I'm willing to put into it at this point. But it'd be great to get out there and just simply see what I can do. And so I guess that would be what I'm looking for. So jiu-jitsu is something that will be in my very near future.
Excellent.
I might have to change my answer in case we ever do an in-person podcast, the three of us. Like, one of you is a gun expert, the other is going to be able to grapple. So I'm going to have to have some kind of self-defense to do a podcast with you two. No, actually, sorry, Diane, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I say what my answer is honestly is backpacking, right? So backpacking is something. I grew up in Colorado, and I was so invested in sports, and so like that's all my family did was I played sports three sports a year, that's all I did, that we didn't really enjoy the Colorado beauty as much as a lot of my friends did. So when I finally got older and got my own life, I'm like, I'm gonna really figure out how to experience the outdoors, and not just camping, not just car camping, but really experience how to like go backpacking for a couple days and live on my own with a backpack and take my kids and do the same thing. So that's something that I actually took a group of, Jody did mention basketball, so I just take a group of my basketball players up to the mountains and let them experience it and make sure they had the right gear and how much gear to carry, and like had a whole write up on, this is the things you need to do, this is how you go to the bathroom, like all the things you don't really think of when you're not a backpacker. So that's the one thing that I really was curious about and asked a lot of questions about and read a lot about and became, again, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, I wouldn't say I could go on the show alone and survive for too long, but like I definitely know how to do a couple day backpacking trip pretty efficiently. So.
And for those that don't, Jamie's not talking about bringing a bunch of adult basketball players.
No, thank you. There were middle schoolers and high schoolers. Yeah, I coached middle school and high school basketball players, and so I brought them up to the mountains and taught them. So
got it. Excellent.
Great. Well, great answers. I didn't stump either of you, unfortunately, but one of these days I will. So, it's been a great episode. I know I've learned a lot, but let's do our final thoughts from our two guests here. So I'll start with you, Diane. Final thoughts for our listeners, and how can they learn more about you?
Oh my gosh. So my final thought is embrace I don't know and always be curious instead of always be closing. And if you would like to get in touch with me, just go to helbigenterprises.com.
Awesome. Jody, you?
Yeah, I think coaching is always important. So I think if you're not good at it and you don't know how to do it, I think reaching out to a Diane is super important. Don't let your I guess Achilles heel affect your company. Make sure that you get out there and do it, and seek out the person that can help out in that area. For me, myself, it's always been educate, not sell, and I've had that mantra ever since we started the company, and that's kind of how we've grown, and I think we've grown so fast and so well with. And my son getting out into sales, he's out of college and everything. He's selling for Cintas now, and I hope that he's learned a little bit of that, and is doing the same thing. You always hope that your kids are doing and managing things in the same way. I hope he's seen me talk and deliver and that sort of thing in a similar manner, where he's out there educating his potential customer base, and in turn, I think he'll have a great sales career. So that'd be mine, Jamie. How about yours?
Yeah, no, I my biggest advice is listen to these two. I'm definitely not the salesperson here, but I think both these people have educated me on this episode, and I think that the philosophy that we're talking about here, I think really does work. And it, like I said early on in this podcast, it makes anyone that's in the sales process very comfortable, right? Like I worked for a large public firm for 10 years of my career, and I did some sales there, but it was always something that I was uncomfortable doing. But once I became to Summit, it's like, oh, this is easy. I could do this every day if I had to. Like this is really a lot more fun and a lot more easy than anywhere I've ever done. So I think both you guys are definitely experts in this area. So anyone that listens to this podcast will come out of it better. So definitely appreciate you guys.
Thank you. That was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for having us on. Being on with us. I appreciate it.
Enjoy this podcast? Visit our website, summitcpa.net, to get more tips and strategy for achieving business success. We're here to be a resource in this ever-changing industry.